Not every crime leaves fingerprints. Some are born in code. Welcome to truecrime.exe, where fiction feels far too real.
The rain came sideways off the Vltava that night, needling the windows of Kinský Gallery and turning the cobbles into river skin. At 2:11, an ATM camera across the square recorded a van with no plates idling under a dead street lamp. Inside the gallery, the alarms chirped once and died as if someone had pressed a thumb to their throat. By morning, the portrait of a lady in blue, late 18th century, small as a breath, insured at 7.5 million euros, was gone. The night guard, Marek lay in a locked vestibule with blood in his hair and his key clip missing. The building. Kinský is a modern museum in an old shell. Parquet floors, white walls, humidity that never quite settles. The lady hung in a second-floor salon facing the river, a slip of a thing whose eyes followed you across the room and saw you better than you saw yourself. Docents told school groups about brushwork, about the way blue was once ground from lapis and cost more than gold. Security was electronic and sentimental. Doors logged every open and close. Cameras watched corners that hadn't moved in a century. Guards did rounds on the hour because that's what guards do, even when the computer says you don't need to. The guard. Marek was 52, broad and quiet, a man who carried a thermos and whistled out of tune when he was alone. He had a brother who installed security systems and a father who taught him that a key ring should feel like a weight you never forget. On the night of the heist, the ring was lighter than it should have been. He was found just inside the vestibule that led to the service stair, the door locked from the inside. The initial theory said he'd slipped and struck his head. The bruises said otherwise. A crescent above his ear consistent with a blow from something with an edge, perhaps a frame corner. Under his nails, the lab found linen fibers, not shirt cloth, but ground, fine, sized, the kind you stretch when you make a canvas sing. The override. At 1:58, the locking system recorded a single master override. The code belonged to Deputy Curator Šedá, who was at home asleep, a fact her phone and building cams confirmed. How had her authority crossed the river? The override wasn't entered at a wall panel. It came from a maintenance tablet stored in a sealed cabinet in the basement, sealed with a key that should have hung on Marek's belt. It did not. The cabinet lock showed no pry marks. Either Marek used it himself, or someone used a duplicate. When asked whether duplicates existed, the museum's head of facilities said of course not, then looked away at the window and asked if he could smoke. The van. The ATM camera gave the van shape but not number. It sat with one taillight dead and one headlamp fogged, the kind of thing you use when you want to be seen as too ordinary to notice. At 2:19, it moved across the bridge towards Smíchov and folded into the city like a letter slipped into a coat. A traffic camera caught the outline again, then lost it near a carpentry shop that had changed names 3 times in 2 years. The janitor and the turpentine. A week before the theft, the night janitor says, a man came to the curator's office carrying a portfolio tube and smelling of turpentine and clove cigarettes. He waited 20 minutes. He left without being announced. The receptionist on duty remembered him only as tall, with hands like a pianist. The visitor log showed nothing. Artists come and go through museums all the time. They do not usually go through at night. Inside the frame. The lady's frame remained, hanging on its hooks like a mouth robbed of a tooth. The backing board bolts had been loosened gently. No splinters, no haste. Someone had time. Someone was not afraid. An art restorer brought in as the consultant curled her fingers in the air as if feeling ghost wood. "You can take a painting out in under a minute if you don't care," she said. This took 10, 15. It took care. The restorer found 2 trace specks of lead white on the floor where they should not have been. Fresh, barely oxidized. A cleaning, she suggested. A rehearsal. The Ring and the Botanist. Interpol whispered about an inside ring that moved mid-tier works through Vienna and Bratislava, washing provenance in auction houses with more charm than conscience. There was talk of a collector known as the Botanist, who paid for canvases with cash and orchids no one could legally own. The nickname came from a raid years ago where paintings hung between racks of Paphiopedilum like cousins at a family reunion. No one could say whether he liked blue. In Bratislava, a warehouse yielded frames, solvents, and a stretcher matched, by dimension and tool mark, to the lady's. Dust lay in it like sleep. There was no painting. The brother. Marek's brother, Petr, installed alarms for banks and boutiques. He cried like a child at the funeral, then told a detective that his brother had called him a week before the heist to ask about the weird behavior in the museum's fail-secure doors. If you triggered an override and then killed power mid-cycle, a vestibule lock would click shut and not reopen until a manual key turned. It was a bug Peter had seen in older firmware. "I told him to submit a ticket," Peter said. "We laughed about computers. Then I told him, don't play with it." If someone wanted to trap a guard in a vestibule for 2 minutes, a quiet 2 minutes while a team lifted a canvas off a wall and slid it into a waiting case, that would be a way. The Curator. Šedá, whose code unlocked the place in the night, wept with convincing heat. She had a reputation for walking the galleries like a priest in a sacristy, hands hovering over surfaces without touching, lips moving with labels under her breath. She denied knowing any thieves. She admitted knowing artists. She laughed once, brittle. Who in Prague doesn't? A junior registrar remembered Šedá receiving a plain envelope 3 days before the theft and tucking it into a book without reading. The book was about botany, a gift, the registrar thought, from a patron. Šedá resigned. She moved abroad. The museum wished her well in a statement that said nothing and everything. Reconstruction. Look at it this way. 1:55. The van parks under the dead lamp. The rain drills steady. 2 people in hooded coats cross the square and disappear through a service entrance door that opens in odd hours for odd reasons. Deliveries, restorers, curators who live at work. 01:58. The override triggers. Somewhere in the basement, a silent cabinet opens without a pry. The tablet wakes. Upstairs, the vestibule begins to cycle. Marek, hearing something he can't place, steps into the small square between doors with his thermos and his heavy ring of keys. Power blips, the fail-secure bites. Marek tries the inner door, locked. He tries the outer, also locked. He curses once, loud enough to wake a camera, but cameras in vestibules tend to watch entry, not inside. No one sees his breath fog the glass. 2:01. The ladies' salon door opens with a little mechanical sigh. The frame lifts. bolts loosen with practiced hands. The stretcher slides. Someone edges backward, carrying a canvas in front like a riot shield. Marek hears steps, or thinks he does, and pounds the glass. The man with the canvas flinches. The frame corner kisses Marek's skull, leaving a moon-shaped bruise. The thieves retreat, then return, faster now. A second person opens the vestibule door from the salon side, a crack to clear the way, pressing against the fail-secure's stubborn mouth. Marek pushes back. Nails scrabble. Linen fibers ride under them like spider silk. The door slams. The vestibule holds. Marek slides to the tile. The thieves carry the lady down the service stair. 2:11. The alarms chirp once, as if in protest, and go quiet. Across the square, the van's brake lights bloom like petals. The rain approves of everything. 2:19. The van floats into Smíchov and dissolves into streets that know how to shave off memories. Aftermath. Prague told itself a familiar story. Art wants to be free and people want money, and sometimes those desires meet in a night of rain. The lady in blue did not come back. In her place, the gallery hung an empty frame. Children craned to peer into it, as if a very small person might be hiding inside. Each November, the museum hosts a talk about provenance. The slides show stamps and invoices and the tender ways paperwork lies. In the gift shop, a postcard of the lady remains for sale. Tourists buy it and put it in their pockets next to receipts and coins, and for a moment the painting is theirs. As for Marek, the vestibule has been modernized and the firmware updated. His name lives on a small brass plate by the staff entrance. His brother changed careers. He installs windows now. Glass tells the truth, he says. And then, because Prague is a city of mirrors, he smiles and corrects himself. At least you know where it is. If the botanist exists, he waters his orchids in a room with no pictures on the walls, because some luxuries are too loud. If Šedá knows more than she said, she keeps it as priests keep taxonomies of sin, in order, in silence. Somewhere there is a canvas breathing in private air. Somewhere there is a frame that remembers the weight it held. On rainy nights, you can stand on the bridge and watch the gallery's lights sapphire the river. The empty frame on the second floor catches nothing but reflection. It is not the same, and yet for a second, the city looks like a painting, which is another way of saying the painting is still here, only everywhere and untouchable, just as the thieves wanted, just as the rest of us feared.
Case closed. Archived in the synthetic vault. If you dare to return, the next file awaits. truecrime.exe. The line between fiction and fear.